How
morning.
are
How are you?
you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Spring's coming to Beijing. The sun is shining. It is a good day.
Exactly. It's a beautiful day here in Beijing. So, for those of you joining, this is so exciting for me to have a guest that's actually here in Asia with me because typically I'm talking to ladies from other parts of the world. We've done some in US, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, but that was good too because they were on this time zone. But a lot of times when I'm talking to our guests, it's like good evening and good morning for, maybe two or three of us that are on.
Right. You're like, good morning, good
I
afternoon, good
know,
evening, wherever in
right?
the
Right.
world.
And it's a good problem to have, right? Because we have
Yes,
this beautiful global
absolutely.
community of people that are joining us. So, hello to all our friends joining. Somebody said, hi, Rachel, Giovanni.
Oh, hi, Giovanni. Oh, I know Giovanni. Thank you for
That's a
watching
friend.
and joining
Okay,
us
okay. So you
today.
have your supporters on. That's awesome. So Rachel, thanks so much for joining us for our Women's History Month edition of Core Live, Core Connection Live. And I'm so grateful that you were
Yes.
available to chat because we've been acquainted for a little what about a month and a half. And it was like all of a
Yes.
sudden, I'm like, she's doing so many amazing things in the community. And I just love all the work you're doing to share the world with people and empower people. So just tell us a little bit about yourself because I'm also getting to know you too. I'm really excited to do so.
Thank you. Also, thank you so much, Aisha. Yeah, in the month and a half since we've known each other, I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing all the things you are doing in Beijing. And the Core Sisters, it's amazing. It's such a wonderful community. And thank you so much for having me on. It was also just really cool this past weekend to go to your Growing Forward Summit here in Beijing. So, to all of you girls who are connected already with it, it's such a fantastic community. So, thank you, first of all, for having me. And yeah, I'm Rachel. I am from the United States. And I've been living in China for nearly 10 years now. And this is
Wow.
something that was not a expected journey. I think like many expats, I came here to China for what I thought would be 1 year. It was gonna just be 1 year, then I was gonna go back to the States. I was having a job in marketing lined up. My background is marketing and media. That was my major at university. So I was just like, oh, I'll go to China for a year. I wanted to travel. I wanted to get out, see the world before I kind of got into a career back home. And then China had some other surprises for me. When I first moved to China, I actually was a university teacher. And I started a blog, this blog, Rachel Meets China. And that's kind of where I started sharing my stories, some photos, some information about what it was like living in China. And first, it was just a way for me to share with my friends and family, like, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm okay. This is what this little city I'm living in Hunan province looks like. And it kind of slowly grew from there, and it became a bigger thing because marketing and media was my major, and I learned like, oh, there's so much more I can do with blogging. It can reach a bigger audience than just my family and my
Mm,
friends. I can actually connect with other expats living in China, connect with
right.
people who are interested in traveling to China, and it just kind of grew from there. And I started traveling more, learning more about blogging, SEO, marketing, kind of creating a kind of bigger community for living in China and for expats who are interested in learning about China.
Which is
And then since
huge.
then, yes, absolutely. So then after that, I moved to Guangzhou for a year. Then I moved to Beijing in 2018, where I've been ever since working in all kinds of media and marketing areas.
Wow, what a great journey. And I love how organic it was. Like you came and you had one thing. And I was thinking when you were saying that China gets you like that. Everyone thinks we're only going to be here for a short
Yes.
time. And then I'm 5.5 years in too. And I'm thinking like we were supposed to be here 3 years and we're still here. And we're
Yes.
actually just really here. We're not even like thinking about going anywhere. So I understand. But I'd love to hear your journey and how you took all of your skills and your gifts and channeled them into something that you love. Liam is saying Rachel is the coolest blogger I've ever met. So, I mean,
Hi,
you
Liam.
just looking, it's so crazy because I seen your posts and I've seen your travel blogs. I think I told you the first day we met, I had all your rooftops in Beijing blogs sent to myself in WeChat because I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm such a rooftop girl. And I didn't even realize it was you until after I met you, but I had been following your work without even knowing that was you. So it's really great. You are touching a lot of people. You're opening up what an amazing country this is, and allowing the world to see it for people who may not ever come. So I think that's a great, really great what you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Like really it's the community, like you mentioned. It's so cool how people can become connected and connecting with my videos or my posts. And the biggest point for me is that it's helpful. I love when people are like, "Oh my gosh, that showed me something new," or "I didn't know that was in Beijing," or "I didn't know I could do that in China." And I love hearing that because even for me, I'm still learning and finding new things all the time. And it's exciting to share that with people because I think one of the things with building this community as well was that I think there's so much about China people don't know or they
Yes.
have misconceptions about. And it's something that, oh, there's a whole group of expats building lives here, starting amazing communities, doing cool things that I think a lot of people have no idea about. So for me, it's about creating that space for that. Like, right, it can be fun things, cool rooftops, cafes, where to go traveling around China. I also love connecting people with helpful services. Like I get questions all the
Mm,
time, even just about, oh my gosh, if I need to go, do my taxes, or I need to go to this health checkup, like helping people find fun, interesting things, but also connect and get deeper in to different communities in Beijing. So I'm really passionate about that. I've done a lot with my online blog, but I also do offline events. And I think it's nice
yes.
to have a connection of both of those things where you can
Yes.
not only share online, but I love when you also get to meet face to face. Being in China, we also use WeChat all the time, and there's all these WeChat groups. It's an amazing place to get connected in. And then it's great when you get to take it offline, meet each other face to face, see what each other's doing. And I love organizing events where people get to kind of connect and join different circles of activities and create some kind of deeper, meaningful connections as well in Beijing.
I love that. I saw your post recently where you said that it was really nice. You love your vlogging, but it was good.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you had a networking event, a media networking event, and that it was good to see
Yes.
people. We that connection, you missed that. You missed that like eye contact and just being in the presence of people, and you realize you crave
Mm-hmm.
it. And there is so much convenience here in China that when I leave, I don't even know how I'm going to survive. I don't know how you feel.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But I do really value those in-person connections. I'm glad you were there. It was wonderful, right? To just be in the room and give people hugs and fist
Mm-hmm.
bumps and just actually like feel the energy that, a lot of amazing expats here in Beijing exude. I want to point
Mm-hmm.
out that someone on here says, I love your video since I was born in Beijing. And you're like talking about how you're showing the world China, but it's probably nice for people who don't live have left Beijing or from here to be able to see their city through your eyes, which is a really big compliment. And also maybe parts of the city, Beijing's huge. People need to know that. So if you don't live here, trust and believe, Rachel knows there are so many nooks and crannies in the city. And it's like, I don't know, you'll probably cover more ground because this is what you do. But I feel like that there's always like a restaurant or something that someone's posting. And I'm like, send me the pin for that because there's just like so much to be discovered here and just in this country in general. So I think the work you're doing is really amazing. So,
Absolutely.
but anyway, I
Yeah.
want to jump into, so looking back, I feel like you've answered so many questions already that we've had, but looking back at the time you've been here, what do you feel like are some of the most important lessons you've learned personally and professionally since you've been here in China? And that really,
I
our theme for the month is this month is growing forward. So I want to hear about kind of your growth. You've talked about your trajectory and kind of how, like I said, it's organically kind of you came here and you've grown. But what are some of the things personally and professionally that have really helped you grow as a person?
I think something both of us I think mentioned is being surprised by how long we've been in China,
Mm,
and I think that's because of the opportunities and things that happen here that kind of are unexpected, which is really exciting, right? Like I think that's been one of the things that's helped me a lot professionally and personally here. These interesting opportunities that have happened and popped up. Uh, it was kind of like I love this quote. It's kind of like opportunity is where luck meets preparedness, something like that. Where I think if
I
you're
love
working on
that.
yourself, you're going for your passions, you're preparing yourself. You're doing everything you can. And that's what I felt like, okay, I'm blogging, I'm learning about what I want to do. I'm passionate about what these things. And then sometimes China brought these lucky moments where, oh, you meet the right person at the right time, you cross paths, or, you know, whatever you want to call that. I think these really interesting opportunities have happened. And I'm very grateful for that here in Beijing. I think it's also been interesting being in the media space
Mm-hmm.
here. There's been so much I've learned over the past 10 years. The digital media landscape has changed so much in this time since I moved to China. You know, back then in 2015, blogging was kind of a supreme thing, and everybody was writing and travel blogs. That was the big thing. And suddenly video content took over, you know, Reels
Yes.
was launched, you know, TikTok came about. So things have shifted more to short form contact and kind of video contact. And I've had to shift not only like my media trajectory, growing more into video content. Like a lot of people who knew me back in 2015, I wasn't doing videos, I was doing photos, and photography was kind of my main thing. So it's been changing and growing professionally within this media field with myself, and also in this cultural landscape of China. You know, there's so many things that you've had to learn and adapt to, understanding where you're at, and how to connect authentically with people here. I think that's something I've also had to grow with, being online and being somebody that people are like, hey, I've seen your videos. I try to maintain a level of authenticity and trying to be real, whether I'm online or offline. And I think there can be a lot of interesting things that come about from that. But I've learned and grown so much about how to balance that for myself, how to maintain my boundaries, how to protect my own mental
Mm.
health. There's been all of these unexpected things coming with being in the media space, that have kind of pushed me to self-reflect, learn on what I'm doing, challenge myself more. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Wow. That's so amazing. And I think, like you said, like these things come unexpectedly and you kind of lean into them and they start shaping you, right? And it's like your path just kind of, it just kind of propels you forward. So, you know, I was going to ask you what growing forward means to you, but you talked a lot about growth. I don't know if there's anything else when you hear like growing forward, you think about. I mean, I think that a lot of what you've talked about have been things that have surprised you. Has there been anything that you feel like has been intentional that you think about when you're growing forward?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's something I've always been thinking about,
Mm,
especially with choosing to stay longer in China. I kind of remind myself, if I'm staying longer here, living abroad, living away from my family, what am I feeling my purpose is here? What am I driven by? What do I want to continue challenging and growing myself by? So it is something I'm constantly thinking about intentionally as well. I think certain times it is those fun moments of, oh, this popped up, this happened, but also there's those moments of, what do I want for myself and how do I want to continue growing here in China? So part of that this year was launching this Beijing Media Network. I have been wanting to do more offline professional mixing events. You know, some of them are very like workshop and networking, but also just that point of connection, like I mentioned before. I was thinking, I want to connect more with people offline. And
right.
sometimes it comes to that point where you're like, well, if I want to do this, maybe I'll be the one to make this space and see what will happen. Sometimes I think everybody's very busy. We all have different things going on. Sometimes it just needs to be one person to say, okay, I will make this space. Let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And the first event we had was really nice. You know, like 50 people came together from these different media professions that I know from, not only traditional media, but content creators and YouTubers and people who are looking for also offline connection. And that was really cool. So that was one big thing, this goal I had this year is, how do I challenge myself and how can I create more connections that I'm looking for and wanting to continue growing with. So that was a big thing that I kind of set for myself this year. And there's been many points like that over the years as well. Like, hey, this year's my goal is this. I'm going to focus on this. How can I continue growing professionally? But then also, what do I want
Right.
personally? You know, I also went through my dating years here in China. I'm married now. I met my husband
Congratulations.
here. So that was also thank you. Thank you. That was also an interesting journey.
Yes.
You know, I think especially I had so many conversations with women living abroad. We are going through such an interesting path professionally, but then you think about your personal life and, do you want to get married and a family and a partner, and all of that comes into play when you're living not only in your own country but living abroad. There's so many dynamics that come into that. So there's been so much growth and change over the last 10 years.
Wow, that's really good. And you know, Thank you for sharing that, because like I think community is really important, especially in the international space. And I know your connections are open up to everyone, like internationally and locally. But I think like for the international community, it's really, really important to have those type of outlets depending on what your niche is or your passion is. And it's so great that you had the heartbeat to create that space for people in media. So that's really commendable what you've done. And what you're saying is really a good segue, because you're talking about dating and being a woman in the city, and thinking about your what you want to do and what you want to do with your life. And I think that there's probably people, even some of our friends that are on the live, that also feel the same way about where they are in their lives. And you mentioned the word purpose. So how do you use what you do, your purpose, your platform, to inspire other women? And why is that important to you?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I get from women, especially being a travel blogger in this travel space, something I've seen in the most comments I kind of get is, how do you do these traveling things alone? How did you do it solo? Because I came
Oh,
here, and I traveled solo a lot, before I got married, before all of that, I was doing all these trips by myself around China. And I would always get questions like, "Oh, is it safe?" Like that's something to be mindful of as a woman,
right.
especially when you're traveling. And it's a very important question to ask. And so part of it was kind of creating these guides in the space to talk to other women about what is it like traveling in China? How can you travel in China solo? How
Mm,
can you feel empowered and confident and prepare yourself and feel ready for that? So that was something I really loved talking to women about, especially with starting my blog and talking to other women travelers, talking to other women in this media space. So that was a really cool part of connection that I really enjoy talking to other women about. It's helping women feel empowered, like, yes, you can do it. It can be a little scary moving across the world and going to a different place, even just taking, a solo trip by yourself. It can be a little bit scary. Everything's kind of on yourself, but kind of feeling like, oh, yes, I can do this. I can. I'll prepare. Here's some helpful tips and guides. And I've even chatted with women throughout their trips, like, hey, I'm here. How's this? What's going on? So, kind of creating a nice space where women can connect and talk has been a really nice thing, because I know it's changed my life and I've felt so empowered. I didn't do a lot of solo traveling before I moved here. And it's a really nice way that I think a lot of women can push themselves out of their boundaries to try something new. So, that's one really big way that I love doing that with women. And then the other way is also just here in Beijing. I've got really great women friends, and there's all these women communities here that's been really awesome and supportive.
mm-hmm,
And one thing this year that I really wanted to do as well, this is kind of one of my goals and one of my passions, was okay, let's do an offline event for women as well.
mm-hmm.
So while I do stuff for media, I love doing women's events. I love the women communities here, and I thought, let's do something. It can be a charity event. Let's do something where we can create a space for all these different women groups to come together, be offline again, and have an opportunity to uplift and support each other and just provide that connection space. Because again, I think there's so many people and so many things happening in Beijing that having a place where people can all get together, exchange ideas. Oh, I didn't know that was happening in Beijing. Oh, that's happening here. I love that feeling. So that was kind of an online, offline thing I've been thinking about a lot again.
Yeah, no, that event was great, by the way. Thank you so much for putting it together. I actually attended your event as well, and there was so much great energy in the room. Um, at that Women's History, event, and I think there were 15 women-led organizations that put it together, and you did do it to help. It was like for women by women. So I loved really the energy and the effort that was put in there, and just the positive vibes I felt there. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
So I know you did that for Women's History Month. Um, so I guess you kind of answered that question, because I was going to ask you kind of like what you didn't answer what Women's History Month means to you and how it
Mm-hmm.
connects to your work. But you did talk about kind of like helping women travel and things like that. I don't know if there's anything else that you think about when in regards to Women's History Month and how it connects to like what you're doing for women. And when you just think, I don't know, maybe even if you're talking about a lot about what you're doing now, but I feel like you're also kind of helping like build a legacy. Because I was thinking when you're talking, people look for you when they're looking for travel. They see you, and it's like they're you, like you said, they're empowered. And the C in core is about courage, and it takes a lot of courage to do
Mm.
this. Even though we know that China's relatively safe, to just go into places that you don't know and things like that. So when you think about like Women's History Month, how does that connect to what you're doing and kind of maybe what the legacy you want to leave?
Mhm. Yeah, when I think about History Month, there's so many women that inspired me, that have
Mm,
helped me, push me forward, challenge me, even inspire me. So that's something I always think about. I think about mentors in my life, or people who have kind of been there, even if they don't even know that they really inspired me. Other female travel bloggers, other females in the media space, women in the China-US relations space. I'm always looking at these other women who are doing these things. And I'm so thankful to have those kind of examples and those kind of people that I get to look at and be inspired by. I think sometimes I feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. That can be something that comes about, that you're like, I don't know, I'm not quite at this level, or I haven't hit this goal. And like, am I in a place to give advice to people? And am I in a place to offer this something that people are looking for? And I have to remind myself, like, oh, I think a lot of other women before and other women right now feel the same way, that you're always in a place where you can be doing something to help. And there's something about your story that you can share that people will be interested in or want to learn from. And I have to like fight those feelings of imposter syndrome and say, oh, no, no, no. There are women who are looking at that and who are looking for what I'm doing. And so I guess I kind of just look at that trail of women I'm inspired by, feeling that own confidence for myself. Like, yes, okay, there's other women coming now. And even in Gen Z, there's all these amazing women coming up in this next generation. And it's really cool to be able to continue that line of connection and be in a space where hopefully I can also inspire other women this month and every month, as we're,
mm-hmm.
traveling and doing stuff here in this different space in China.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's really great. There's actually a question from our friends online. Someone saying, how's your Chinese language going? This will actually cross my mind. Can you speak it fully now that you've been living there for 10 years, Rachel?
Thank you for your question, Giovanni. He is very engaged in what I post. I am not fully fluent. I will say that. That's something that I have not spent a lot of my time here professionally working on. I'm conversationally fluent. I travel by myself. I can do China. That's okay. Of course, having full fluency is something that is the ultimate goal, right? So it's something I still study and I still practice sometimes. But it's not been my top priority in my last few years in China, as I've been focused more so on my media and what I'm doing
Mm,
in that space. So it's something I think about. And of course, being here 10 years, it definitely helps when you're speaking fluently, but it's not it's not been the ultimate goal right now.
oh, thanks so much for answering that. I crossed my mind too when you were talking about traveling, but there are so many ways that we can get around now with translation apps and things like that. I think sometimes it's really helpful. Sometimes I feel like it handicaps myself as well. My son knows it a lot
Yes.
more than us, me and my husband, but I do wish that I know more. But I mean, it's just great that you're even conversational. And I think the
Yeah.
more you're in like areas where you need to use it, it always helps us learn more, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That's one of the interesting things. I actually used it so much my first few years, and I was constantly in situations where I was traveling in more remote areas, living in smaller cities. And I do find in Beijing, sometimes you can go throughout the day, you just know how to get by, or you know what to do. And
exactly.
even in my professional job, personal job, actually working in English language media in China,
Okay.
I used to go, like, even talking to friends or colleagues, trying practicing my Chinese, doing more, and they're kind of like, oh, we got to get this done in English. So you're like, oh, okay,
I know.
something I need to,
Just
you have to go to the
default.
next level, right, to push yourself to practice
I
more.
know you do. You have to be intentional about it. So, here at
Absolutely.
Core, we're all about sharing stories, and that's literally what you do all the time. So, I just want to ask just about as far as digital storytelling, um, how are you using it to bring people together? You kind of you talked about your events and things like that, but how is it kind of playing a role in like building community, bringing people together, and really like in the outcome? is you creating meaningful change. So how do you use your digital storytelling for that?
Mm. Yeah, thank you for that question. I think with doing especially online media and content, there's so many layers to it, right? And so many things to be mindful of, especially when you're wanting to be a creator that's growing. And so, on one hand, you always have that pressure of, ooh, what's the algorithm like now? How is
Yeah.
that changing? How do you get seen more? How do how do you craft the perfect hook and lead and song and trending audio? And there's all this pressure from one side of these platforms that you feel as a creator. Not that you want to make that your whole goal, but sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm spending all this time and energy and effort to create a story, to create something I want to share with people, something that I hope will help them or affect them. So I have to know about these other sides of the marketing behind it. But then this other side is the most important part to me is what do I want to share that will be helpful? Sometimes it can be entertaining, but I want it to mostly be informative. So there's a lot that kind of goes into even crafting a video or creating something that you want people to enjoy and find helpful. I think, like I mentioned before, one of my favorite things is when people come up to me or say like, hey, this was really helpful, I was planning my trip. And I love to see that point of connection of like, hey, this thing that I created and thought about and spent time on and was thinking about this story I wanted to share has had an effect. It has created a difference for somebody, even if it's something small like a food recommendation or going to a certain restaurant, something that can help improve their experience in China, because I think that also has overarching lasting effects. Like I mentioned with the China space, I think it can be a challenging country to travel to, and it's really difficult sometimes. And having that kind of experience, whether it's good or bad, finding the right place to go can really change your overall experience, which changes your viewpoint of China. And I found that like when you have a few extra tips to help you get through here and find the right content to watch or how to get around, it really impacts, your overall experience, then how you view the country. Maybe you'll meet extra local people, you'll meet new people along the way that also
Mm.
shape what you're feeling about China. So I've definitely seen like that through line from watching one piece of content to how it might impact what you're feeling about how we connect as people, how we connect culturally, how we connect globally. And I love seeing that small effect from one content piece to something a little bit larger.
Wow. I bet that that is powerful, and it is great that you're not just doing this as like a fun thing and to get people to follow, but you're also being a resource to, your a global community, because China is a really intriguing country, and when people come here, it's nice to be able to have tips and tricks to navigate it, because anyone that's been here the first couple weeks, if you've never lived here before, it can be difficult to navigate if you don't have kind of a little bit of a plan or a roadmap. So super grateful for that you're doing that for our global community and the friends that follow you. So we've asked a lot of stuff about your work and you. I think I always like to just kind of throw kind of a reflective question in there. So here, because we only have a few minutes left, the time has flown. I can't believe it. But just how do you practice like gratitude and reflection in your personal life? And um, I don't know, even if you're thinking in regards to growing forward or not, but just how do you practice that in your
Mm.
life?
I think one of my favorite ways to have, like, in the middle of all this busyness and China and life and work and everything, I find it helps me to have moments for myself. One of my favorite things to do in China for my own little me time is to go on a long walk. I love to just go for a long walk. And it doesn't matter where I'm going, could be around my neighborhood, could be in a different place in Beijing, but it's a really nice point where I get to just sit and be like, wow, sometimes I still pinch myself like, oh, you're just living in China, like you're living in Beijing. And I love having those quiet moments for myself to be thinking about, wow, look at where you are right now. What else do you still want to continue doing? What's up next? Like, and how do I feel?
Mm,
Yeah, I feel really grateful at times and having that moment of time. Because then you start, I don't know if it's the same for you, even living in China a few years, I start walking around, I'm like, oh, you kind of see things with fresh
yes.
eyes again as well, which I always have to feel is really good for me. Sometimes it's easy when you live in any place for such a long time, you might feel like, whatever, it's normal. You don't, and I've always reminded myself, I don't want to feel jaded. I want to feel grateful. I want to
Right.
feel excited and passionate about where I'm at. And that's something I talk to a lot of expats about. Like if I ever started feeling like I wasn't in a growth space, and if I wasn't feeling challenged or excited about what I'm doing here, I would remind myself like, what am I doing here then? Maybe there's someplace else I need to be or something else I need to start
Mm.
doing. So having that feeling of freshness when I'm going out for a walk, appreciating the day-to-day little things, as long as I'm still reminding myself and feeling that excitement, feeling that freshness towards life here and what I'm doing, then I feel great. So I love having that moment to reflect and having those little interactions while I'm going about my day.
I love that. I think I like that balance you have in your life because you're doing all these really great things. But I love the pause and just going into nature,
Mm-hmm.
walking around, and just looking at your surroundings and reflecting. And it's good. Those times are good, and that's fuel for you to keep going and to kind of recalibrate to what you like. Make sure am I where I am, and so I think that's a really
Yes,
good,
recalibrate. Mm.
yeah, that's really good. Thank you. I think that's something we could all use. So thanks for sharing that with us. And we are actually at almost at time. So I love, I mean, this could have gone on an hour. I'm like, 30
There's so
minutes isn't
many
enough.
things.
There's
There's
just
so
so many
many
great
things.
things that you're doing and great things you share. And it sounds like someone said, Tanya said, Rachel, you're fantastic. Yeah, thanks
Thank you,
everyone for
Tanya.
joining and
Thank
for
you. Thank you,
giving
guys. There's
Rachel so many
so many of
flowers and
you. Thank
shout
you.
outs. So, I just think like, so what's going on? Like, tell us where we can. I think most people know where to find you, but is there anything else like if you tell us really quick where to find you, and is there anything we should look for that's coming up that you're doing?
Okay, yeah, you can find me. I'm on most channels, Rachel Meets China, Instagram, YouTube. I started using Xiaohongshu, some Chinese stuff, but you'll find me mostly on Instagram. And yeah, I've got some exciting ideas. I've more offline event ideas. If you're a media professional living anywhere around Asia and planning to come to Beijing, please let me know. I'm happy to connect. I've had a lot of people reach out, even from Shanghai, Hong Kong, somebody from Thailand. So if you're coming through to Beijing, I would love to connect with you. But also, if you're just a traveler, if you're looking for more advice or information, you can also reach out to me. I usually share my WeChat. I also have some Beijing city life groups where I share all of these recommendations with food, travel, advice. So I'm happy to help. Please reach out anytime. I give my WeChat away all the time because I love helping people and connecting with them. So please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for having me today,
Yeah,
Aisha.
thanks
You're
for being
you're
here. So,
amazing.
really quick, Giovanni said bye, and someone else said he said great conversation, ladies. Have a good day. And then Kodani, I think I'm pronouncing her name, said she's inspired and she discovered you last week, and she's gotten so many tips
Oh,
already where to travel.
oh,
So,
I'm
just a
so happy
couple
to
little
hear that.
comments.
Thank
Thanks so much,
you.
everyone, for joining today. Rachel, thank you for being our Women's History Month speaker, talking to us about being intentional and just letting sometimes life take its course when you were growing forward, and all the ways that you are using your gifts to inspire communities, not just here in China, but around the world. And we really are grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for creating this space with Core Sisters, though. It's really amazing to watch what you're doing, and I'm excited for your future things, and I can't wait to join them.
Yes, there we will be having more future things, and maybe we can do something collaboratively on women that travel
Yeah, yeah,
here in the
yeah.
city,
Okay.
sharing their
Yeah,
travel stories. So awesome.
perfect.
Thanks so much, and have a beautiful, beautiful day,
Thank
evening,
you.
afternoon, wherever you are. All
Thank you guys
right.
for watching.
Bye.